Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Jerry Toomer. He's a senior HR executive, change agent, author of The Catalyst Effect. Welcome to the show, Jerry.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Welcome to the show, Jerry. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about how one can unleash their catalyst effect. But before I come to that, help us a bit about your journey, Jerry. A long journey, a lot of experience, a lot to learn from. So help us a bit about your journey so that people know who they are listening to. Rather than listening to me about who you are, let them understand who Jerry Toomer is exactly.
Good. Thank you for asking. It's a nice way of saying the long journey means that I'm older. How about that?
Not at all.
That's a very polite way of saying that. Thank you very much. But yeah, who am I? I'm in my third career. Actually, I'm consulting and writing and teaching in my third career. Working backwards, my second career was in human resources and organizational behavior with Dow Chemical, Dow AgriSciences on a global basis. And in that career for 25 years, I was fortunate to spend 4 years in Hong Kong, living and working there, and had responsibility for 14 countries for all the HR work, including India, Australia, Korea, Japan, everything in the Asia Pacific region. So I got to travel a bit to your home country and know a bit about the culture and the business environment there, but I'm certainly not an expert, but I know enough to be dangerous, huh? And so that was my second career. I loved it for 25 years, but my first career out of graduate school was teaching at American University in Washington, D.C. In the graduate program in psychology there. So I'm a psychologist by background, doctoral level degree from University of Iowa, and then taught, then worked in business, and now I'm teaching again, consulting and writing. That's me.
Absolutely, that's very much you, Jerry. And when I say a long career, does not necessarily mean about the age. It is about the experience and understanding. Because nowadays, a lot of people, whether they have a long career or less career, there is a problem with the type of leadership that we are having, and there is a lot of discussion about leadership in crisis. And you talk about the catalyst effect. So I want to understand, with so much of experience of understanding, being a part of the human resources of top organization. So in terms of that, how do you look at leadership in today's time? Means why there is this whole debate about this leadership in crisis, and especially in the backdrop of the great resignation and quiet quitting. I want to understand your understanding on this.
I think we've been in an evolution for many years of professionals, technical professionals in business, and leaders as well, stepping up and wanting to take more responsibility, but also needing to take more responsibility in the organizational structures. So as one example, we in Dow eliminated layers, right? We went from about 12 layers of management from CEO down to plant worker or sales rep. And we went from 12 to 6. And so when we did that, our spans of control, each manager may have been having 8 or 10 or 12 people reporting to them. Well, rather than that many people, they might have had 50 or 60 or 80 people reporting directly to them. Many companies are going through that same structural adjustment now. I just noticed that Bayer is doing exactly that. And so with that becomes the need for people who are working on project teams and doing their own work on projects to step up and either lead themselves, self-leadership, but also play leadership roles in their teamwork. So they don't have a boss up front telling them what to do. They need to play that leadership role. So it's leading without necessarily a formal title. It's leading necessarily with a formal reporting relationship of people reporting to them, but it's playing that leadership role in the business environment. And I think we're seeing that structural change across all organizations, whether they're not-for-profit or business organizations, as they streamline.
Right, right, Jerry. So, whatever changes uh, organizations are going through in terms of leadership, do you see that as only changes for the present, or those are going to be, long-term changes in the way leadership does it work, leadership is perceived, because a lot of people are talking about human leadership, conscious leadership, and so many new terms have come up to address whatever problems we have in terms of, as I said, the great resignation, quiet quitting, and several things. How do you see that? Is it a transition, or is it a long term change for the better or worse? How do you see it?
Oh, I think it's a long-term change for the better. I think a lot of people working in organizations want to play leadership roles on certain teams and in certain ways when they have the skills and the knowledge and they have the right teamwork to be able to do that. But maybe they don't want the hassle of having 20 people report to them, right? And worrying about budgets and performance reviews and all that. But they want to play a leadership role. So as a bit of background, if I can, so our
Yeah,
research around leadership asked one basic question to people in three different settings. So the settings are: in business setting, we interviewed leaders. We interviewed leaders and high performers in sports, football, basketball, baseball, etc. I'm sorry, we didn't catch cricket. And thirdly, in the arts, in music. And the fundamental question that you might reflect on as well, or I'd invite your listeners to reflect on, is who do you know that when they step into the conference room in a business setting, or onto the stage in arts, or onto the field or the pitch, who makes everyone around them better, right? Who do you want to walk into that room to be part of your team to make everyone's performance improve? And what is it that they do? And what we got at in those questions, and then we did in-depth interviews, and we wanted to know specifically what people say, how they behave, how they carry themselves. What is it that they do that makes everyone around them better? And that, to a great extent, is a leadership role that you play by sitting in any chair you sit in on a team, whether you're thinking about sports or whether you're thinking about an orchestra, whether you're thinking about a project team in the work environment. Whatever chair you're sitting in, you have that opportunity to step up at the right moment and play a leadership role and to express your voice and your ideas. So, what is the kind of person who does that exceptionally well? And who can you think of that does it well? And then tell me how they behave. What do they say? What do they do? So, our research is very curious about how behavioral we can be in describing those specific actions that people take. Does that make sense to you?
yes, yes, indeed, indeed. So let me understand it a bit more in your way. Uh, the some of the qualities you said looks very good, sounds very good. And some of the people, if people might say you are talking about how a cheerleader also should be. So what's the difference between a cheerleader and a leader who is leading an organization? Does he have to be also a cheerleader? How do we look at these two aspects in present day leadership?
You know, that's a good question. There's, I think, a good leader in the sense of being a catalytic leader knows when to step back and provide the room for others to step up and take a leadership role. That person knows when it's okay just to be quiet and step back and listen. And
Right.
they also know that there's a time when they have the expertise, or maybe when there's an opening and the team needs their leadership skill to step up and go to the whiteboard, or step up maybe in the orchestra even and take a leadership role and say what they think about the piece they're playing or whatever. But they step up and they fill maybe the vacuum or the void with a voice that helps the team move forward. So one of the items, and we actually have an assessment tool, right? But people get feedback on how others perceive them. And one of the items that we have is knows when to step up and talk and lead, and knows when to provide room for the voice of others. So that gets at your cheerleader versus active leader kind of comparison you just commented on.
Right, right. Now, you also said sometime just a few minutes back about the leadership nowadays not wanting to lead a number of people, but they still want to have that leadership role. So, is leadership getting much more, you can say, aloof? And how will such leaders then perform the sort of leadership roles that you just described after that? How does that work for the future?
Well, I think with the new structure, I think with more people, and let's use an example. Let's say that one manager in a company has 40 direct reports and is running, 16 major projects. The leader, the formal leader or manager can't be everywhere at once. So these teams have to work independently and on their own. And those teams need to have a leadership roles, people on those teams playing leadership roles. So I think that's the macro sense of how the work environment is changing. And then within that, you have people that are willing to step up and they want to step up and play an informal role or a formal role. And so it's necessary to move the teamwork forward. And the catalyst effect, which the research I described, the book talks about the 12 competencies that are essential to be able to do that really well. So what are the 12 competencies or 12 sets of skills that these informal leaders need to be able to step up and play that leadership role on a team and play it effectively?
Right, right, Jerry. So before I will come to your book. I want to understand then when you say that leading from anywhere, what does it mean? Means do you talk about leadership which is remote, which a lot of people are talking about? Again, they are saying that companies are saying if you are sitting somewhere else and your team is somewhere else, then perhaps you are not the right person. You need to come back to office, especially after COVID. So that sort of a debate is, even they are applying the same sort of a theory in terms of giving promotions and all. So help us understand when we talk of leadership from anywhere, how does it work also in the remote culture that we are having in today's time? Again, we need both the sort of things that can work in today's environment. A lot of people want to work from different places. A lot of people do not want to take leadership, but they want to still have leadership role. And a lot of people are insisting that only those people will get promotions who will come to office. It cannot be both, that sort of a hybrid culture. Help us understand then what way we are moving forward.
You just posed a very complex question. And so I'll try to give you a straightforward answer as I can. Let me break it into a couple pieces. First of all, you're talking about in-person work versus remote work or hybrid work. There are clear limitations to working remotely when it comes to getting to know people really well, and when it comes to knowing people and those people who will really be good leaders personally. And I don't think there's any replacement for being face to face in that regard. It adds a lot of richness. Now, having said that, I would hasten to add, it doesn't mean that people working remotely don't play leadership roles. They certainly do on projects and driving meetings, setting agendas, giving feedback, moving the projects forward and the team forward, et cetera. It can work very, very well. So remote work can be very effective from a leadership role. But I think when it comes to the personal connection and getting to know those people who are going to be your strongest leaders longer term, it's very hard to replace the personal interaction. So I think we're still sorting through in the world, and especially in the business community, what the most effective approach is. Personally, I would, for my business, my small business, I like a hybrid. I like to have some personal contact with people, even though 80% of the work may be done remotely.
Right, right. Now let's come to the book, your book, The Catalyst Effect. Uh, what is this book about? You talked about 12 points. So tell us, if for the common person, what is this book about? Who is this book for? Why did you write this book? What can people learn from this book?
The book captures really what I've described here in the first few minutes. It's based on the field research. It's based on that key question. Who do you know that when they step into the room, right, makes everyone around them better, right? And from that research, we gleaned 12 competencies, and the book is based on those 12 competencies. So there are 12 chapters that address each of those competencies in turn. And we're very specific about saying these are the behaviors that underpin those competencies. These are the things that somebody visibly does or says that are positive and that really work and help promote that competency. And these are the things that inhibit and get in the way of that competency being expressed in a positive way. So it's a very clear representation of the behaviors that are underpinning those 12 competencies. So, and let me add, I like the idea of style. I'm a psychologist by training, right? So I like the idea of Hogan and DISC and Myers-Briggs and the style instruments. Am I an introvert? Am I an extrovert? Am I intuitive? Am I judgmental? And so those are interesting concepts, and I value them. But my approach is much more behavioral. I want to give you the feedback and have you think about what you actually say and do and how you behave, because that's how people see you. That's how they experience you.
Right, right, Jerry. Now let's look at the
So
word.
the book is about inviting people to understand those 12 competencies and then reflect personally on how they see themselves. And then if they wish to take the next step and look at the assessment tool that we have, which is a 360, a full 360, where you get feedback from your peers, from your boss, from your direct reports, if you have them. And you can get really quick feedback as to how they see you. So how do I show up? How do people see me on those 12 competencies? What am I doing that really works and moves the team forward? What am I doing that maybe inhibits my performance and my impact in the team? So then that's the value add to understanding the model and getting the feedback and then being able to take action.
Right, right, Jerry. So, do you think leaders have that zeal or want to really look at themselves how they are being perceived? Because if they do it, they will come to know where the problem is. Sometimes they themselves could be the problem. And then there are so many new terms that have come up, imposter syndrome and so many others syndrome I want to that have come up. The challenges faced by leadership, challenges from the board of directors, challenges to the things like COVID, whether they have gone wrong or right, because everybody came out wrong. They first said you can keep on working from home. Then they said you have to come to office, and everyone got confused. So again, there were many questions. How should leadership then look at themselves? Because do you think the type of leadership we have in several firms, they would want to look at leadership, or they should or themselves, or they would look at the numbers down there on whatever screens that they are looking at?
Well, I think it's imperative in today's world that leaders look at how they lead, that they self-reflect, that there's some level of self-reflection. I think some leaders are afraid of doing that or reluctant to do that. I think some leaders get caught up in some of the buzzwords and some of the models, but I think it comes down very granularly to how they behave with their workers, with the people that they're leading, whether they're peers or whether they're direct reports, and understanding what's working and what's not working. So I try to make it very simple and very straightforward to try to cut through some of the confusion you're referring to.
Right, right. Let me ask you this way. A catalyst is uh, someone or something that is not impacted but impacts things around whatever it wants to. How do you know that a leader is a positive catalyst, or is actually bringing in things that will be negative in the long term? Because initially, big changes, small changes, no changes, no one can know in the initial stages. We have seen it in history. We are seeing now in all the places. So how does it work in a corporate? How do I know whether the changes or the catalyst effect that one is trying to bring as a leader is actually going to be good for the company? Or is it that immediately when there is a problem, the leader will jump ship and go to next venture?
Well, the proof is in the pudding, right? It's in the performance of the strategic decisions that a company makes, right? And so if the company is pursuing the wrong strategic goals, no amount of good leadership at the team level is going to make a difference if they're chasing the wrong things. So there becomes obviously the business plan, the business strategy, the goals that the teams have that are going to make a business decision that's going to impact the bottom line in a positive way. So, but within that, if you assume the strategy is pretty clear and the business strategy is positive and effective, then there's a lot of room for teams to work effectively or to work with dysfunction. And so that's where the catalyst effect steps in, is how can you be that positive catalyst to propel your team forward, given that you're headed in the right direction? So obviously, to restate what I just said in a different way, if you're headed in the wrong direction, then obviously being a great catalyst is just going to get you in the wrong direction faster, right? So you have to be headed in the right direction. But given that, now I want to talk about how your team works together, and I want to talk about how each of you in that team step up at the right time to play a leadership role and express your voice and make a difference in that team. And that's where the 12 competencies are fairly clearly defined. So for a young leader or a technical professional who plays a leadership role, to look at the 12 competencies and understand what they mean for them and how they're perceived by their peers can be very, very powerful. That's part of the growth of being a professional in the business world. It's also, by the way, the growth of a great NBA player or college basketball player or rugby player or violin player in an orchestra, right? You want that feedback, assuming that you're already headed in the right direction. Make sense to you?
Absolutely, Jerry. Now, a catalyst can operate in a certain environment. How does a catalyst? What sort of an environment does the catalyst can need to operate much more the way it wants to? What's the role of the organization here? Suppose if it's a mid-level manager who wants to play a catalyst, but the CEO or even the top board of directors, if the CEO wants to bring in changes and the board of directors have their own way of looking at things, how much can a catalyst do or not do, or just forget about being a catalyst, just be a cog in the wheel?
I think the culture of the organization is kind of what you just described. The culture of the organization is set in tone and in an overarching way by the CEO or the chairman of the board and the executive team, if you will, from the top. The culture of the organization is set from the top. But the culture of the teams that work in that organization, the way those teams work together, the culture of those teams is set by the leaders of those teams. And so that's the opportunity. No matter what the organizational culture is, within some reason or some range, the team leader can make a difference. So understanding those competencies that are key to having everybody in the team move the team forward, understanding those behaviors and implementing those behaviors at our team level, my team, your team, in a very productive way, that's where the team culture, that's where the company experience really comes to fruition, because that's where I experience the company, is in my teams. Hopefully that's congruent with the CEO and the executive, but sometimes it's not.
Right, Jerry. Now, in terms of artificial intelligence, is artificial intelligence going to help these catalysts in what they do? Is it going to be helpful? Also, in terms of leadership, should they look at artificial intelligence as helping them in what they are setting out to do, or is it going to be an impediment in the way of true leadership?
That's a great question. If I had the answer to that, I'd write another book, huh? I think artificial intelligence is so overarching, and it's so broad, and the impact it's going to have on the way we do our work, that I think it's hard to estimate the long-term impact it's going to have on teams. But I think in general, I'm an optimist. I think that artificial intelligence will probably speed up the work that we do on our teams. It will probably enhance the way we communicate. And so I would be an optimist in the way that our leaders, our catalysts, can use artificial intelligence to improve the performance of their teams. I don't think it's ever going to replace the power of the interpersonal relationship and the conversations we have. I don't think there's going to be an avatar of me that's working on a team somewhere and I don't have to be there. I don't imagine that. But I imagine that I can use artificial intelligence to enhance the way I work with those teams that I may be working with remotely, in the content I convey or the way I work on projects and move them forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a new thing, and that's a great thing to hear. And it's a positive thing that people can look at, especially leadership, and also people that we can look at artificial intelligence. Let's see how the world shapes up around artificial intelligence. Be that as it may, there is much to understand, much to learn from you about being a catalyst, being a tried sort of a leader, more about your book. So a lot of people who want to connect with you, learn more about you, about the things you do. What's the best way for them to connect with you, Jerry?
The best way is to go to my websites or LinkedIn, one of the two. You can find me on LinkedIn with my name. If you want to put up on the screen, I don't know if you will want to put up a chat. The website that they can go to is thecatalyst.org. So it's the catalyst and then effect, EFFECT.org. That's the general site. And then the specific site for our assessment tool that gets at the 12 competencies is action360.us. The word action, the number 360.us. So if you go to either one of those sites, you'll get a feel for the kind of work I do. You'll see the book. Feel free to buy the book. It's available on Amazon. It's available in English. It's available also in Mandarin or in Chinese if you have listeners who want to order in that language. And I welcome anybody to get in touch with me through the website. You can just do info@thecatalyst.org, and I'm happy to connect with your listeners.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'll include all these details also in the YouTube description on the show notes so that people are able to connect with you much more quickly, much more better manner.
Well, I thank you for your questions today. It's been an interesting conversation, and I hope your listeners find some value in what we talked about today.
Absolutely, not some value, lots of value, and I'm sure people will continue to find lots of value as we go along, and we continue to see how artificial intelligence shapes the way our leadership works, shapes the way organizations work. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Good. Thank you. Bye-bye.